Is your home ready for any type of emergency? Are you really prepared? If you want more information, stay tuned to Real Possibilities. Thank you for being here with us today. You know, we don't often consider Michigan being a place where there's national disasters, right? But there are things that we need to do to make certain that our homes and our families are prepared for any type of emergency. So I'm so glad you're here, and talk a little bit about what you do. And, you know, your title, when I read your title, Disaster Program Manager, that's a heavy title, girlfriend. I'm just saying, that's a heavy title, Disaster Program Manager. So tell us a little bit about what you do and what that means.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a great opportunity to share what we do at the American Red Cross. And we do experience disasters, believe it or not, here in Mid-Michigan. I'm here representing the Mid-Michigan chapter of the American Red Cross. So local hazards like tornadoes, thunderstorms that can then cause flooding are all things that we deal with, as well as extreme heat, as we know right now, and extreme cold in the winter are all different types of hazards that we need to be ready for. And home fires, of course, are something that we want to be prepared for.
And so that's what we want to talk about today. How do you prepare yourself? Hopefully you'll never have to go through that. But there are certain things that you can, kits, things that you can do in your own home to be ready in case you do have any kind of an emergency.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit, first of all, a little bit more about the Red Cross, because I think people have misperceptions about the Red Cross. They think it's, you know, just primary blood donors, and they know that they show up for national, disasters. But right here in Mid-Michigan, which covers a wide array of communities, you are also involved with day-to-day preparedness for people.
Definitely.
So talk about what you do.
Yes, the American Red Cross has been around since the 1880s and originally started as a war effort to help soldiers that had been injured, and it's since grown to include so many great programs and services that are free. For our disaster cycle services, we provide support for the 3 cycles of disaster. So there is prepare, respond, and recover. For preparedness, we offer free education programs for both youth and adults where we can come out. We're mostly volunteer-led, so we're 90% powered by the generosity of volunteers.
Sounds like AARP.
Yeah. Always looking for more volunteers. And so these volunteers can come out and teach both kids and adults how to be more prepared with their families. We also have our home fire campaign, which provides free smoke alarms to anyone who needs one through generosity of donors, and again, these volunteers who set up the appointments to go into homes and install the smoke alarms. For the response phase of the disaster cycle, when people are immediately impacted by disasters, we send out our disaster action team, all volunteers, people who give their time and their hearts to respond when a fire occurs or a flood or any type of natural disaster. They have a recovery casework process that takes place as they follow the process of getting to a safer home and to their recovery through our recovery caseworkers. We also, for major scale disasters, have sheltering operations. So when multiple people are affected, we have a whole sheltering and what we call mass care team that's able to go set up cots in any of the buildings for the organizations that we partner with, such as churches, schools, community centers. We have volunteers who know what to do. They get their cots and their supplies and food supplies and make sure that these clients or these people that we serve have everything that they need in the moment. And as the recovery process continues, we have our disaster health services. These are credentialed nurses who can follow up with those people who have been affected. They can give them some replacement glasses if their glasses have been lost in that fire. They can call the pharmacy and make sure their medications are replaced if those medications are lost. And we also have disaster mental health, so disaster counselors to talk with those folks over the phone, in person, however they prefer. And again, these are credentialed volunteers, so they have mental health professional backgrounds and able to assist the people who have been impacted, and we have disaster spiritual care. So we have people such as ministers who provide that sort of counseling as well.
Wow, people don't know that. It's important for folks to know that because, again, the amount of services that you offer, hopefully no one will ever need them, but it's nice to know that they're there. You talked about smoke alarms and free smoke alarms for families and people who need them. And I've read this before, most fires are not caused in homes where there aren't effective smoke alarms or operational smoke alarms. Is that a true story?
That's correct. So we know that on average, unfortunately, home fires take the lives of 7 people every day in the United States. The majority of those fatalities occur in homes that do not have working smoke alarms. So our recommendation is to, first of all, get that working smoke alarm in your home, which we can provide. If you go to our website, redcross.org, you can find an online registration form, or you can call our office and we'll find you the right process to get that free smoke alarm. We also recommend testing it once a month to make sure that it works.
Once a month? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. I got to get them tall a ladder because I'm huge.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Set an alert on your phone or calendar reminder. There's a test button and then a quiet button on that alarm. So you can test that once a month, make sure it's all good. We also know that we only have 2 minutes to escape the home once there is a fire. So previously we had more time. You might remember firefighters or other professionals saying you had 15 minutes to get out of the home. Now that furniture and bedding and things have more synthetic materials, they light up a lot more quickly, and the fumes are a lot more dangerous. So previously we had wood, cotton, natural materials in the home, and now these polyesters and synthetic materials can cause a much more flammable situation much more quickly. So we want to get out in 2 minutes. So knowing your exits, having a route that you practice is always a good thing to do.
How do you test a smoke alarm?
Yeah, so with our smoke
fire,
alarm,
right?
yeah,
They're not good.
you become very not good at cooking. No, I'm just kidding. So we have our smoke alarm that we install that is a 10-year alarm, which is great. So that lithium battery should last for 10 years if there are no defects. So we write the date of the install on there so you know 10 years from the install date to go through and replace it. And there are 2 buttons on the top of that alarm. One is push to test, and it'll set off 3 beeps. And then the other button says push to hush, and it just means make it quiet. So that's how we test our alarms. And every time one of our volunteers goes through to provide this free smoke alarm install, they will also test it, each and every one to make
And
sure.
you should do that every month.
That's right.
Even though the lithium battery lasts 10 years.
Yes, just to make sure everything is good and working.
Better to be safe than sorry, right, as they say. What other kids, you talked about a plan, an escape plan, and 2 minutes isn't much time, and particularly if you're older, if you have children or grandchildren in the home. So what advice would you give people if there is a fire? I know they need a plan ahead of time, so talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I think making a plan is really important, especially with your community, if you have caregivers, family members in the area, friends. Just making sure that they're aware of your plan is really important too. So having a list of emergency contacts is a great idea. We have printable communication cards on our website at redcross.org, so you can print that off, cut it out, and then create those emergency contacts for yourself. Keeping it in your wallet is great, multiple copies around, just in case your cell phone goes out. I think we rely on our cell phones so much, so having that paper copy is great.
What if you're older and you have, you might be living alone, but that 2-minute window just isn't feasible for some people, or trying to get children out in 2 minutes? I mean, not the plan for after you're out, but just getting out of the home. What do you do? How do you make a plan for that?
Yeah, I think physically practicing it is a wonderful idea to make sure you're comfortable with opening those windows. If God forbid you have to open a window to get out, making sure that they open easily, that they're not going to be stuck shut, that you know your exits, that you can sort of do a fire drill just like we did in school growing up. Give yourself that 2 minutes and just see how it works and how you can improve.
So make certain you have a plan and that you know what that, and everyone around your family, everyone knows what that plan is and the contact information. Now, the fire is just one type of disaster. You mentioned a lot of other ones, flooding, and what about violence, gun violence, or the threat of a bomb? Do you get into that too, or is that a whole separate unit of?
Yeah, that's a great question because unfortunately gun violence is increasing in our communities. And to be completely honest, it's a bit of a gray area for the Red Cross. So we are essentially on standby to provide support as needed, and we look to the local authorities for our direction. For example, the tragic shooting that occurred at Michigan State University in February was an event that we were able to support in some ways. We weren't sure how at first. We were trying to figure it out as we went, and we just contacted the local emergency management, the university officials to say, hey, we're here to help. These are the types of services we can provide. So 2 things that we were able to accomplish to help were, first of all, a vigil for the president of the fraternity who was tragically killed. They set up a community vigil, so we have what's called an emergency response vehicle. It's really cool. It's a vehicle that we can use to create a mass feeding environment, kind of like a food truck. The window pops out and there's a ledge, and we have everything we need to keep hot foods hot, cold foods cold, beverage dispensers. So we were able to provide some snacks. We had our disaster mental health volunteer available and plenty of tissues, of course. And we also set up what was called our Community Support Center at the Hannah Center in East Lansing. 3 days in 1 week, we had multiple mental health volunteers come to East Lansing from throughout the state. They each had their own room. And if people dropped in, we advertised the times in which they could drop in. We set them up with an individual counselor to just have that one-on-one support time. And we brought snacks, but...
So if there's a question, just call or go to the website and look to see what services are provided. Now, you also mentioned heating, cooling, flooding. Talk about some of those, because people don't often, again, associate, I don't think, the Red Cross with, if there's a flood, or if I'm too cold, or I don't have heat in my home, what do I do? And again, we represent a lot of older adults who need information. Maybe they can't pay their bill and they're sitting there freezing and, or too warm. So what kind of relief can you provide, or what should they do to make certain that they're safe?
Right. Yeah, even just calling us can help us get started in the right direction. We do provide those immediate needs for people who have been affected by disaster. So say, for example, someone receives a certain amount of flooding, we have our own damage assessment standards, and if you meet that threshold, we are able to provide things such as cleanup kits. We have these buckets with lids, and they have mops that you can put together, cleaning supplies, masks, gloves, scrubby brushes, anything you need to clean your home. If enough people are impacted, we will also set up a shelter that people can go to and have a safe place to be while their home is flooded and they need that safety. So we do provide the sheltering piece, some resources such as cleanup kits, and if we aren't able to help, we have some great community resources that we can then refer people to. So whatever people need, we can at least get them started.
I know we're not Arizona, but sometimes the temperature, gets extremely hot. Any advice to give for particularly, again, older adults or people who may be homebound and can't just get out or can't afford their air conditioning or a fan? What advice, or what kind of kit, or what should they do?
Yes. That's such a great question, because we've seen summers getting hotter and hotter, and definitely not exposing yourself to that direct heat is a great idea. Also staying hydrated, drinking plenty of water. If you don't have access to air conditioning, fans are a great option. If not fans, ice packs are good to have on hand. Just keeping really cool and hydrated. And again, having that communication plan, just in case you need someone to call on. Maybe you have a relative or a friend who has AC, then you can go to their house. Going into public, if people have access to go to the mall is a great idea, or the movie theater. Anything you can do to beat the heat and stay cold and cool is best.
One of the things that we always talk about is the social isolation and how people are home alone. And it's just so important to be able to check on someone too, like you're saying, right? To call a neighbor, or friend, or someone that you know, just to check to see if they're okay. We've all heard this horror stories about people dying in their own home as a result of heat or being too cold or no one coming in and checking. So it's important to make certain that we check on each other.
Absolutely.
So what else? If I'm in a car accident, I mean, there's some preparedness there. That's so hard work to say sometimes early in the morning. Preparedness there as well in terms of car accidents, or if you are, if there's a 17 car pileup and you're stranded in your car for a long time. What kinds of things should you keep in the back of your car so that you are prepared?
Yeah, that's a great question. So building your own preparedness kit is something you can do and take advantage of the time when there are not disasters happening. We can plan ahead and get those supplies. I like to keep one in my car and at home so that wherever you are, you'll have your supplies ready. Some things to keep in the back of your car might be gallon jugs of water in case you're stranded and you need some fresh water, a flashlight. I keep cat litter in the back of my car as well in case it's snowy or icy. You can just sprinkle some in front of each of the tires to get some traction, which has personally helped me before I've gotten stuck, and I'm glad I had it. Some people even keep a small shovel in case they need to dig the snow out from beneath their car. Extra clothing is a good idea, or having a sturdy pair of shoes in case you're wearing flip-flops. If it's the summer and you need to walk to a gas station, you can have those shoes available to you. And even just non-perishable snacks. I keep a few canned goods, easy to eat items. Just, God forbid, worst case scenario, you won't have access to food or water. So those are some great things to keep.
And should people keep the car running, or should they turn their car off if they're stranded? If there's they're stalled in traffic?
It's really a case-by-case basis, especially if you're trying to keep cool or you need to heat up. Having that AC or that heat on is really important. Also, just venting your windows every now and then to get some fresh air is good. And it depends on your gas level too. Right. You don't want to run out of gas. Right. So just case by case.
And in the home, what kind of kits should we have available in the home? People have Band-Aids, they have maybe some kind of peroxide or whatever to have. What should they have in their home all the time?
Yeah, the first aid kit is a great item to have for both the car and at home. You can buy some great basic ones at regular stores. There's also an online store at redcross.org. Other things to have, again, are those bottled water containers, just in case you lose access to water. Perishable, non-perishable foods that you can keep on the shelf, canned goods, crackers, chips, beef jerky, anything that's not going to expire. A flashlight is a great thing to have if you lose power and you're trying to find things. There are also some great mobile chargers that you can find at office supply stores or online. So it's a little brick with a USB cord. So you can plug that into your wall and have that bank of power for your phone so that if you do lose power, you still have a little bit of a backup to charge your cell phone. Some other things to consider, again, having sturdy shoes and weather appropriate clothes. Sometimes in a stash is a good idea, a little go bag or evacuation kit. So that could include warm hats or gloves, or in the summertime, maybe some lighter clothes or a baseball cap, and then just good walking shoes available. So there are all kinds of things, and it might sound overwhelming at first, but we also have a checklist on our website so you can plan it, especially according to your budget. Not everyone can afford to splurge and get all these supplies at once, so you can have a checklist, and throughout the year just keep adding to it. And something is better than nothing, so especially during blue skies time, that's our time to plan.
Blue skies time.
Yes.
Like
a day like today when nothing's going wrong.
So when you talk about disasters and you talk about people and what they share, what are you seeing more, what kind of disasters do you see most in Michigan from, not from a corporate standpoint or anything, but from individual homes? What do you see?
Definitely home fires are the top disaster that we respond to. So The American Red Cross as an organization responds to over 60,000 disasters each year. The majority of those disasters are home fires, so we're really putting our effort into home fire prevention, like we mentioned the free smoke alarms before. Other than fires, we also deal with thunderstorms, as we've experienced this summer. A little bit of possible tornado activity that can come with those thunderstorms as well, and hail. I've known some people whose cars has even got damaged from the hail this summer. So really, summer storms are something to watch out for.
So you talk. We've got like a minute left. So talk a little bit about thunderstorms, or when it's hurricanes or whatever. What should people do? Should they go to the basement, go to the bathtub? What do we need to do?
Absolutely. So getting to the lowest level is the best thing you can do if there is a tornado warning or a tornado watch. The difference is that a tornado watch indicates that one may happen. It's a little bit confusing. And then tornado warning means that one has been sighted. So when you see these alerts come out from National Weather Service or wherever you get your news, definitely try to find a basement. If not a basement, the interior of the home, away from glass windows and other hazards. If you live in a mobile home or a trailer, that is the wrong place to be in a tornado. That is not safe. So we tell people, get out of there, find a basement, be it a church basement, community center, friend, relative, whoever.
And if you're older, what do you do?
If you're older, I think having that communication plan is so helpful because you can call around and try to find out how to stay safe together.
Okay. Thank you so much. This is really good information. So we've got about 30 seconds left. Tell folks what you want them to know about the American Red Cross and about staying safe in their home.
Absolutely. So having that preparedness plan is paramount when it comes to staying safe, and the Red Cross is here to help you plan and figure out ways that you can stay safe with you and your family and loved ones. So,
thank you.
Of course.
And AARP offers an emergency preparedness classes in your own community. Please check our website and check out whether or not there's an emergency preparedness event coming up in your community. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for all that you do on behalf of the American Red Cross. I appreciate you.
Oh.
Chris, thanks for being here. We get questions a lot about a trust or a will, probate. Talk a little bit about who needs a trust versus who needs a will.
Yeah, well, there are tools in putting together a comprehensive estate plan. And really the question of will versus trust is really about what your goals are. And one of the most important things to understand is that a will does not avoid probate. A will gives instructions to the probate court on how to administer your estate. And a lot of people want to avoid probate because it's a court process, it's costly, and it's time consuming. So that's where we look at things other than just a will to administer a estate. That's where a trust comes in. Like a trust is kind of like a purse or a suitcase. You put things in, you're holding on to it. God forbid you pass away, you pass that suitcase on to your successor trustee, who then distributes the assets wherever they're supposed to go. So if you're looking at avoiding probate, you don't want to rely on a will. Instead, you focus more on a trust.
There's a myth that you have to have so much money in order to have a trust. Talk about that.
Yeah, so a lot of times in the past, people would use trusts as a way to avoid estate taxes, where if you had more than $600,000, the government could take another swipe of your assets. Now that exemption is at $24 million.
Whoa.
So most people aren't doing trusts.
That won't impact me at all.
Yeah, not yet, right? So a lot of people are looking at trusts as not as an estate tax avoidance, but as a way to avoid probate and control that distribution.
And is there a minimum amount that you'd suggest people look at before they consider a trust?
I wouldn't say that there's a minimum amount, but there just has to be some assets, like a house, for example.
Is there a minimum amount that people need before they consider a trust?
Well, I wouldn't say that there's a minimum amount, but they need to have some assets. For example, even if you have a home and maybe $20,000 or $50,000, you want that home to avoid probate. And so that's where a trust may be the tool that we would want to utilize.
And is it very expensive to establish a trust?
I'm going to have to give you the legal answer where it depends, because there's different types of trusts out there, but usually you're looking at least $1,000.
Contact your financial planner.
Exactly.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Driving and giving up driving, if you've been independent all of your life, is very, very difficult. Thank you for being here to talk about modes of transportation. So tell us a little bit about how to make a decision about whether or not someone should be giving up driving, or a loved one in particular.
that conversation is a very difficult conversation to have. I've had it with my own mother, and she is still driving and almost 90. But oftentimes we find that in a third-party trusted person is the best one to have that conversation with your loved one, such as a physician. And a lot of that can be dependent on how the driver is able to actually conduct the driving experience. The thing about CATA is that we don't want to take away the access to freedom and independence, and so that's what we provide. We remove that barrier and allow the driver to continue to have access to services, go to medical appointments, visit with family and friends, so that that quality of life continues to be available to them.
And that's so important. And it's not about going to a bus stop and getting on a CATA bus. There are other options for people that are a bit more private, and they should explore those options.
That's correct. We do have several demand response, curb-to-curb services that are scheduled in advance for drivers to take advantage of.
And do people need to qualify in order to take advantage of those, or if you just call, or what's the process?
For SpecTran, they would need to qualify, and there is an application process to that, and that application is available at cata.org/SpecTran. It is reviewed by an independent third party, and that is Disability Network, Capital Area.
Good organization, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
As a normal and natural part of aging, hair loss can occur. Usually that's slow and progressive, and we refer to that as male or female pattern hair loss. Other things aside from the natural aging process can affect hair loss. So genetics is one of those things. Whatever runs in your family can apply to you and influence that hair loss as well. Other things which are a little bit more outside of our control potentially, but with also the potential to be fixed or improved upon, include diet, poor diet, sleep or poor sleep, sleep deprivation, trauma, injury, even emotional stress. Those conditions can be temporary or can be fixed or improved upon, but they can also influence hair loss, hair growth as well. On top of that, additional factors that are potentially more complicated, medications that you're on, autoimmune diseases, inflammation, other disease processes, even COVID, can play a part in your hair loss or hair growth patterns. Again, these can be fixed, improved upon. Definitely need to talk to your medical provider about this. Overall, the overarching theme is stress. Stress takes a toll on your body. Anytime your body encounters stress, it uses your resources, energy, nutrients to try to alleviate or heal that stress. So whether you're sleep deprived, you're poor nutrition, your energy goes towards that. And that robs your body, including your hair cells and brain cells, whatever cells, of those nutrients, energy, and resources. So it's important, if you see hair loss, that's an indication to talk to your medical provider about what's going on in your body. That's also influencing your hair, because there might be more than aging that's going on.
We want to make certain that you stay safe, so I hope you'll share this information with others. Thank you for watching AARP Real Possibilities.